picture this. You've just been handed this massive, totally chaotic, unstructured data set by your executive team.
Oh boy, the classic data dump.
Right. And of course, they want deep, actionable insights like yesterday, and they want it to look beautiful enough for a board presentation.
Natural,
So
yeah.
you sit down, you fire up Power BI, and you are immediately confronted with a blank white screen. It's the data analyst's equivalent of writer's block, and the clock is ticking.
It's completely paralyzing.
It really is. Well, welcome to Data Design with Mocha. This is episode 16, and today's date is April 30th, 2026. We're doing a deep dive into a strategy that will fundamentally change how you build reporting tools. We're looking at the top Power BI dashboard templates for 2026.
And it is the perfect time to look at this because, the landscape has matured so much recently. We're finally, thankfully, moving away from the era of everyone just manually building everything from scratch every single time.
Yeah, and the research for this deep dive honestly blew my mind. We found an anchor stat in the sources that feels, well, almost too good to be true.
Oh, the time-saving one.
Exactly. Using standardized templates and following a very specific pre-designed process can actually reduce your dashboard creation time by up to 50%.
50%. You're literally having the time you spend designing and developing.
Having it. So the mission for today is to understand how we actually achieve that. We're going to look at the templates themselves, but more importantly, we're going to explore the critical step of dashboard wireframing, because that's what turns this hair-pulling chore into a streamlined machine.
Absolutely.
Okay, let's unpack this. Before we even get to the templates, the sources are incredibly adamant about something called the layout blueprint.
They are, and it represents a massive shift in how we handle data workflows in 2026, because before we even look at downloading a template, we have to understand what a template actually is under the hood.
Right.
You're generally going to encounter two file types in Power BI, a .pbit and a .pbix.
Okay, let's define those, because I see those extensions everywhere, but, the functional difference isn't always super obvious to people.
Yeah, think of it like the difference between a skeleton and a fully cloned human.
Okay, that's a slightly terrifying analogy, but I like it.
Right. So a PBIT file, that's a Power BI template file, is just the skeleton. It contains the report layout, the visual architecture, and the data model structure.
Meaning it knows how the tables are supposed to relate to each other.
Exactly. But it holds absolutely zero actual data. It's just lightweight and, totally secure to share. PBIX file, on the other hand, is the full Power BI report file.
That's the clone.
That's the clone. It has the skeleton, but it also has flesh on the bones. It contains the design, the model, and actual sample data inside it.
So if I'm understanding this right, a PBIX is great if I want to sort of reverse engineer how a creator built a specific chart, right? Because I can actually see how their dummy data interacts with visuals.
Precisely. You can poke around and see how it works.
But if I'm deploying a standard for my own company, I probably want that empty PBIT skeleton. So I can just, map my own data straight into it without having to strip out someone else's dummy numbers first.
That is the exact use case. And here's where the workflow has completely changed this year. You don't just grab a PBIT file and start plugging data into it anymore.
You don't.
No, the industry standard has shifted to wireframing first, utilizing dedicated platforms like mockup.ai or even Figma before you ever open Power BI.
Wait, hold on. You're telling me the whole point of using a template is to save 50% of my time?
Yes.
But then you want me to add an entirely separate phase to my workflow where I'm just, drawing boxes in mockup.ai? Doesn't adding a new design step basically cancel out the time I supposedly just saved?
It totally seems like it would. I hear that pushback a lot. But what we're actually doing is eliminating the most expensive bottleneck in data analytics.
Which is?
The design handoff failure.
Yeah.
Let's look at the traditional method. You skip the wireframe. You spend, say, 3 days writing complex DAX formulas, which, for those who don't know, is the underlying programming language Power BI uses to calculate metrics.
Right, the really heavy lifting.
Exactly. So you build a fully functional live data dashboard. You take it to the marketing director, and they look at it and say, I hate this layout. The most important metric is hidden at the bottom, and these colors are all wrong for our new brand guidelines.
I could literally feel my blood pressure rising just hearing that scenario.
Because it happens every single day. Now you have to go back and unpick days of intricate data modeling and DAX logic just to, move visuals around and change the hierarchy.
And that is just wasted engineering time.
Completely wasted. By using a tool like mockup.ai, you are creating a static drag-and-drop wireframe that is styled to exact Power BI dimensions.
So it looks real.
It looks real. You get the stakeholders to approve the visual hierarchy, the layout, the brand colors, all of it before a single line of code is ever written.
Okay, I get it now. So it's really about separating the user interface design from the data engineering. You lock in the interface, you get their signature on it, and then you go find the PBIT template that matches that approved layout.
Exactly. The wireframe is basically your contract with the stakeholder.
That makes a ton of sense. But getting the stakeholders to agree on a mock-up, well, that's really only half the battle. Because if you hand an approved wireframe to a developer, but it's tailored to the wrong audience, the project still fails.
Oh, absolutely.
So how do we match the architecture to the audience? Because the sources we looked at divide the template ecosystem into functional templates and industry-specific templates.
Yeah, and we have to look at the structural data challenges each of these solves, rather than just, the pretty charts they display.
Right.
Functional templates are built around specific department operations, so sales, marketing, finance, HR. And they differ wildly under the hood.
Let's contrast two of those. Because if I'm looking at, say, a sales template versus an HR template, they're both basically just tracking numbers, right? Why are their underlying templates structurally different?
Well, a sales transaction is what we call an immutable event.
Immutable?
Yeah. A salesperson closes a deal on Tuesday for $10,000. That event is stamped in time. It doesn't change. So a sales template is optimized to aggregate those fixed events, summing up revenue, calculating win rates, and, forecasting based on a linear timeline.
Okay, that makes sense. Just stacking up completed events.
Right. But human resources data is entirely different. An HR template has to manage what data engineers call slowly changing dimensions.
Ooh, slowly changing dimensions. Here's where it gets really interesting. What does that actually mean in practice?
It means the entity you are tracking, the employee, is constantly shifting states. An employee might get hired in Q1, promoted in Q2, move to a different department in Q3, and then maybe they leave the company in Q4.
Right. They are at a single fixed event.
Exactly. So an HR template is structurally built to handle snapshotting. It needs specialized data modeling to answer questions like, what was our headcount in the engineering department on exactly March 15th?
Oh, wow. And it has to do that without double counting the salary of a person who moved departments later in the year.
Exactly. If you try to force HR data into a sales template, your historical data will completely unravel.
That is wild. So the template isn't just a collection of pretty bar charts. It's a pre-configured solution for a very specific mathematical headache.
You nailed it.
And that brings us to the industry-specific templates, because these seem to cater to incredibly niche sector demands.
They do, because certain industries rely on compound metrics that simply do not exist in general business operations. Take manufacturing, for example. A manufacturing template is almost entirely built around OEE, which stands for Overall Equipment Effectiveness.
Which is what exactly?
Well,
Is that just tracking if a machine is turned on or off?
it is so much more complex than that. OEE is a compound metric that multiplies three factors together: availability, performance, and quality.
Okay, break that down for me.
Sure. Is the machine running? That's availability. Is it running at its maximum theoretical speed? That's performance. And are the products it's making free of defects? That's quality.
Wow.
Right. A manufacturing Power BI template has a very specific data model designed to ingest live sensor data from factory equipment, calculate those three distinct variables in real time, and output the OEE score. A standard functional template wouldn't even know what to do with that sensor data.
That's incredible. And we see a similar thing with retail templates, right? Focusing on footfall analysis like tracking physical human movement through a store and correlating that with inventory turnover.
Exactly. Or e-commerce templates that are just completely obsessing over cart abandonment rates.
Right. The architecture has to match the unique reality of that industry.
Exactly.
Which brings up a really practical dilemma. Let's say I'm an HR director, but I work for a massive retail chain.
Yeah.
The retail template has the footfall data the executives care about, but the HR template handles the slowly changing dimensions of my massive workforce. Do I have to choose one and just lose the other?
If we connect this to the bigger picture, this is the exact reason wireframing is your very first step.
Oh, I see where you're going.
Yeah. If you buy a rigid template and just dump your data in, yes, you are trapped. But if you start in mockup.ai, you can build a hybrid blueprint.
Right.
You take the core HR visuals, your headcount and attrition, and place them right next to retail-specific metrics like store-level footfall.
So it's less about choosing a single specialized tool and more like building a custom control panel using modular components.
Exactly.
You wireframe the hybrid, and then you or your developers adapt the underlying Power BI data models to feed that specific layout.
The wireframe gives you the freedom to invent the dashboard you actually need, rather than conforming to the dashboard someone else built.
I love that. Okay, so we've sketched out our layout. We understand the data models we need. Now we have to talk about the elephant in the room: budget.
Ah, yes. Budget.
The sources lay out an absolutely massive list of resources for 2026. And the real tension here is choosing between the free tier and the premium tier. Let's start with free.
Well, the free tier is incredibly powerful for individuals, startups, or even internal teams doing basic reporting. I mean, Microsoft provides robust sample templates natively in the Power BI desktop or on GitHub.
Right. And you also have massive community hubs like Power BI Tips, which offer free tabbed layouts. And those GitHub repositories where users just upload niche dashboards for everything from COVID tracking to, sustainability KPIs.
Exactly. And obviously, platforms like mockup.ai offer a free tier for those layout wireframes to get your structure locked in before you build.
Okay, but let's look at the premium tier. We have tools like Numero Pro, which offers sleek UI kits, and DevScope, which the sources note provides enterprise-grade packs with Dynamics 365 integration.
Actually, let's pause on Dynamics 365 for a second to explain why that premium integration really matters.
Yeah, please do.
Dynamics 365 is Microsoft's massive suite of enterprise resource planning and CRM applications. It's essentially the central nervous system for a huge corporation's data.
It's everything.
It's everything.
No.
So building a dashboard that successfully pulls live data out of that massive system without breaking it, that is a serious engineering feat.
Right, and the sources also mention Agile Analytics for heavy executive summaries and BizInfograph. But looking at this list, I am struggling with the value proposition a bit.
How so?
Well, if Microsoft gives me a perfectly functional finance template for free, and the Power BI Tips community has free color themes, why on earth would a business pay thousands of dollars for a premium template from Numero Pro or DevScope?
That is the million-dollar question. It comes down to a hidden trap that ruins more data projects than anything else: performance at scale.
By performance, you mean the dashboard literally slowing down.
Exactly. Let's use an analogy. A free template treats your data like cars on a single-lane country road. If you only have a few thousand rows of Excel data, a few thousand cars, the single lane works perfectly fine. The cars move smoothly.
But businesses don't stay on Excel forever.
Right. Suddenly, the company scales up to an enterprise SQL database. Now you have millions of rows of data updating in real time. You are trying to push 1 million cars down that exact same single-lane country road.
So a massive traffic jam, the dashboard freezes.
It freezes, it crashes, or, almost worse, it takes 30 seconds to load every single time an executive clicks a filter.
And an executive staring at a spinning loading wheel is an unhappy executive.
They instantly lose trust in the data. This is where DAX data analysis expressions comes into play. Premium templates are not just about looking prettier. They contain highly optimized DAX formulas written by top-tier engineers.
Oh, so a premium template is like upgrading from the single-lane road to a multi-lane highway system with HOV lanes and smart traffic routing.
Precisely. The premium DAX is written to route complex queries instantly. It only calculates exactly what is needed for the specific visual on the screen, rather than recalculating the entire massive data set every time someone clicks a button.
Wow.
So when you buy a premium template, you aren't paying for the paint job, you're paying for the invisible traffic management under the hood that ensures the dashboard loads in milliseconds, regardless of how massive your database gets.
That is a phenomenal way to look at it. You're literally buying scalability.
Exactly.
So you've wireframed the layout, you've chosen your functional or industry-specific logic, and you've decided between free roads or premium highways. How do you make the absolute final call on which template to download?
Well, the sources provide a really solid 7-point checklist for 2026. We should walk through the tension between these points.
Let's do it.
The first point is reporting goals. You must know your objective before you start. The second is data compatibility. This one is crucial.
Because if your company uses Salesforce or Azure or an on-premise SQL server, you have to ensure the template is engineered to ingest that specific data architecture smoothly.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
Which brings us to the third point, customization level. You have to be honest about your internal team skills. A premium template might allow deep adjustments, but if nobody on your team actually knows how to rewrite the optimized DAX formulas,
You might break the highway system you just got.
you'll definitely break it. And that brings us to the fourth point, visual appeal and user experience, or UX. This covers clear fonts, logical navigation, and cognitive load management.
Now, I have to push back here a little bit.
Go for it.
Isn't visual appeal a little, subjective?
Yeah.
If the DAX is perfectly optimized, the data model is sound, and the numbers are 100% accurate. Who cares if the dashboard's color palette is a little boring or if the navigation buttons are kind of clunky? We're data analysts. Our job is accuracy, not art.
What's fascinating here is that the data industry has finally realized that user adoption relies almost entirely on human psychology. Yes, UX is not about art. It is about cognitive friction.
Cognitive friction.
Yeah. When a busy executive opens a dashboard, they have a limited amount of mental energy to spend. If the interface is cluttered, if the fonts are hard to read, or if they have to click 6 different tabs just to find the core revenue number, the cognitive friction is too high.
So what happens? Do they just close it?
Worse, they revert to their old habits. They will email you and say, the dashboard is confusing, just send me the Excel dump.
Oh, wow. So bad design literally defeats the entire purpose of the data engineering.
Completely. The perfect data model is rendered entirely useless by a clunky interface.
That's crazy.
It is. But this is why visual appeal is on the checklist, and it ties directly back to why wireframing in mockup.ai has become the standard. You are designing for human behavior first and data accuracy second, because if they won't use it, the accuracy doesn't even matter.
That is a huge paradigm shift for a lot of analysts. Okay, rounding out the checklist. Point 5 is performance and scalability, which we covered with our highway analogy. Point 6 is budget and licensing, weighing the upfront cost of that premium template against the hundreds of hours saved by not building that highway yourself.
And finally, point 7, community and support. If an API breaks or Microsoft updates Power BI and suddenly your template stops working, does the creator offer forums, tutorials, or direct troubleshooting?
Because you do not want to be left stranded with a broken executive dashboard and no one to call.
Absolutely not. It's a nightmare.
So what does this all mean for you, the listener, the next time you get a data request?
I think the biggest takeaway from the 2026 landscape is to stop starting from scratch.
Yes, please.
Staring at a blank canvas is just a waste of your technical talent. Embrace the two-step workflow. Use a wireframing tool to map your layout, get that stakeholder sign-off, and lock in that frictionless user experience before you write a single formula. Then, you can confidently choose a template whose underlying architecture matches your data. Whether that's a functional model handling slowly changing HR dimensions or a premium highway system built to handle millions of rows of SQL data without crashing.
Exactly. My challenge to you this week is simple. Do not open Power BI first. Open mockup.ai, or even just grab a whiteboard and sketch the user experience. Force yourself to solve the human problem before you solve the data problem.
It will completely change your development speed. And I'll leave you with this final thought.
Let's hear it.
We've seen how wireframing and templating can cut design time by 50% today. This raises a pretty important question. As these systems become more deeply integrated with AI, how long until the act of simply dragging a wireframe box onto a screen automatically writes the perfectly optimized DAX formula for you in real time?
Oh man, when the blueprint actually builds the highway for you.
It's coming.
That is a wild thought to end on. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. It's been incredible unpacking the nuts and bolts of data visualization with you. We will see you next time on episode 17 of Data Design with Mockup.